Hello again, and welcome to our third video in the series of looking at the pelvis and just becoming more familiar with movements around some of the joints within the pelvis. The aim of this is to really get you to become more aware of your bodies, and I'm finding that it's a great opportunity being online with you to be able to bring this information to you or to those that may feel it might help. So this is the kind of stuff that on my private sessions with clients or semi-private sessions, I can kind of give this information and observe this in people's bodies. In groups, it's a little bit trickier, and obviously online in the sessions, it's really difficult to be able to identify this for you. So I feel like this platform is a great opportunity for you to become more aware of your own bodies and for me to sort of pass some of my knowledge on to you in the hopes that you can learn a lot more about how your body's moving and to help you to achieve better function. So once the body's functioning optimally, we can do anything with our body, okay? And at any stage in our lives, we can improve the function. So in the last two videos, I've given you a little bit of information on the anatomy of the pelvis, the landmarks that we can feel and embody on ourselves. We've also looked at ways to release tightness or holding in the sacro-iliac joints, which are at the back of the pelvis, and they join the two halves of the pelvis. We looked at the halves of the pelvis and how they move. You know, like a wheel is the imagery that I would like to use for that. And we've got the tailbone at the bottom. We also looked at when we flex the hips, how the sacrum kind of moves down and out and then comes in and up. So it's this slide and rotation of the sacrum, and we've embodied that with feel. So if you want to go back to the previous video to have a look and to identify that within your own body, then please do so. And hopefully from that video, you may have identified one side of your body or of your pelvis that might be slightly tighter than the other, a little bit more held than the other. And it's so important for this area of our body to be balanced because it's a really important place where force transfers and force gets absorbed. And if we have those imbalances, obviously, we become less efficient at those, and it can lead to problems and pain in different areas of the body. So to identify whether which side of your pelvis might be stronger than the other, we're just going to do a few movements. And these movements are really to identify an imbalance in the gluteals, so the muscles that sit, the buttocks basically. And these are really important for balance across here because of their attachment points, not only to bones, but to really sort of important, I'd say, or crucial kind of ligaments that join the bones to bones that actually kind of through fascial tissue connect to many different areas of the pelvis. So if the glutes are imbalanced, it can have a huge effect and an imbalancing effect across the sacrum. There's deeper muscles of the pelvis as well that can also create a twist of the sacrum. It's the piriformis. I know if you're runners, you'll be very familiar with that muscle or may already identify that as an area of tightness or weakness within your pelvis, or just basically an imbalance. So if one side is really tight, it's pulling us across here. You can see how the pelvis then gets a slight tilt. You also get potential for rotation in the pelvis when you get these muscles imbalanced. But before we can do anything about any of those issues, we need to know where we are today. Where are we starting from? Okay, what might need changing? And hopefully by just doing a few of these next simple movements, you might be in a better place to identify which side of your body might be stronger than the other. And hopefully by doing some of these exercises on a regular basis over a 2 or 3 week period, you may see some changes across that area. So I hope it's going to be helpful. So we're going to start by lying on our backs. You're only going to need a mat for these exercises, and you're going to be very familiar with some of them. And as I said, although these are movements in themselves to create strength and on both sides of the pelvis, there's also an opportunity for you to identify what's going on. So we're going to start by being on our backs. Actually, it might be worth, I just said we weren't going to need any props, but I think I'm going to do the knee squeeze one today, which I wasn't planning on initially, but just thinking about it, I think we will do that one. So a cushion or a ball or anything that you can just hold between your knees to squeeze onto is going to be helpful. So if you're watching and you haven't got that, just pause the video and grab yourself something to put between the knees in a little while. Okay, so we're going to start by lying on our backs, and we're going to have our knees bent and our feet down. So we're going to try and maintain a nice sort of straight spine. We're not going to tilt the pelvis back. And we're going to start by just lifting the hips up and then letting them come down. Onto the feet, stand and lift the hips up and bring them down. So lifting up. Can you notice maybe that you're pushing more on one foot than the other? Please make sure you're breathing. Good. So just notice if you're pushing on one foot more than the other, and if you are, see if you can balance that out. And also, can you notice if you're shifting over to one side more than the other? So if there's any deviations in your movement, we want it to come straight up and down. And I'd like it to be nice and smooth as possible as well. So can you notice that can you bring yourself back to a more balanced movement? And just making these mental notes as you're moving, which side you tend to stand on more than the other. And we want to do about 10 repetitions, and then you can repeat that 2 to 3 times. So this is a really nice strengthening movement for the glutes to help support the sacrum, the sacro-iliac joints, and bring a balance. Then when we're here, just move side to side. Just move your hips side to side. So maybe you can go like, is there one side that feels more natural for you to go to? Or does it feel more kind of challenging to go one side than the other? And can you keep your hips level, or do you find you're dropping on one side? Just notice that in your own movement, in your own body. Just breathe. Side to side. And then we're going to lower, so we're doing a little rotation. Lower the hips. And again, this is very similar stuff. You'll be familiar with this kind of all these different pelvic movements from our Garuda work. But this is a little bit, again, a little bit more specific and a little bit more kind of an opportunity to notice whether one side is particularly weaker or in the previous video tighter than the other. How does this feel? Is there one side that you kind of drop down on and the other side, oh, it's a little bit stiffer? And then come back to parallel and put your hips down. So you might already be feeling that as quite a work for your glutes, working quite hard in the glutes there. And that, as I said, is an exercise in itself. And if you're using this as an exercise and you find it useful, then I would suggest you do 2 to 3 sets of about 10 repetitions. So let's now come back up again. This is a little bit more challenging. We're going to do pelvic tilts backwards and forwards. So you'll start to feel a little bit more kind of involvement of the hamstrings. And the hamstrings are so important when it comes to a balance around the sacro-iliac joints. Yeah, again, the ligaments that the different muscles attached to really kind of link to different areas of the pelvis. So quite importantly, the hamstrings, to be balanced, they're going to have a huge effect. If you've got one tighter than the other, Yeah, it can really make an effect on what's happening around the pelvis. So just a couple more tilts. How's that feeling? Is it quite hard work? Is it more on one side than the other? And then bring your hips down, all the way back down. And just notice how that feels. How does that feel across your back now? Breathe. And then we're going to do this with one leg. So this is where we start to identify one side being, so you already might be being aware like, oh yeah, I have to work harder to keep my hip up on my right or my left. Now we're just going to take that a little step further. So I stretch one leg away and then I lift my hip up and I bring it down. Lift it up and down. Lift it up and down and up. I'm just going to do another two for the purpose of this video. And down. I bend my knee. I do the same on the other side. Now I already know, I've worked out my right side is far less, is much weaker than my right side, sorry, is much weaker than my left. So I have to be a little bit more focused on this one to bring it up or and down. So to improve this, yeah, I need to do more on the weak side. It kind of sounds quite obvious, but that's what it takes, is to just work the weaker side more. So with that in mind, I'm going to do another 5 on this side for me today. It's already being a challenge. I'm already significantly more fatigued on this side. And then I can rest and bring that foot back down. Good. That's a really great exercise to get a bit more balance across the glutes and in a way to help the joints across the sacro-iliac joints. So for that one, you know, if I did this daily for 2 to 3 weeks, and I increased that repetitions on my right side, doing more than my left, I would be in a good position to make significant changes to an imbalance in that area, which would then hope to reduce any pain or dysfunction that is there. So help me to kind of move better and just be more confident in the way that I'm moving, not just in my Garuda classes, but in my day-to-day life. So the next one we're going to do is with the cushions. And what I want to really identify here is to get stability across the sacrum to support the sacro-iliac joint, because sometimes it is really a lack of stability that causes issues for people. So this one is to engage really key muscles that are involved in the stability of the sacrum and the lower back. It's all kind of connected, even though we are kind of mostly discussing that sacrum and sacro-iliac joints. I'm going to take a pillow or cushion. These ones I'm going to have, and I'm going to pop it between my knees. And I'm going to put my hands on those, on the front of my pelvis, on those bony landmarks at the front of the pelvis. Now, when I do this, I want to ensure that I'm not engaging with the this area. Yeah, I want to think about the space between my hip bones. So with my hands on my hip bones, I'm going to squeeze the cushions between my knees, which will activate my inner thigh, which comes into my pelvic floor. And then I'm just going to push those two bones at the side of my pelvis. I'm going to push them together and then release. And I push them together as I squeeze the pillows and then I release. So I engage with those very lower abdominals, and that's what this pushing of those bones together is going to encourage. Just that deep transversus, the muscle that's like a corset, yeah, just that muscle to engage as I squeeze the cushion there. So this system, these muscles, the adductors, yeah, the inner thighs, the pelvic floor, and the transversus, those muscles are really sort of significant when it comes to stability of the pelvis. What I want you to notice is when you squeeze the cushion, you engage your pelvic floor and you're bringing those two bones closer together. You're encouraging it with your hands. You're engaged. I want you to then notice the release. Make sure we can release, because we don't want to be bracing, because that changes. That's not what we want to encourage. We want to be able to release, and we need to engage, and we need to release. We want to engage, and we want to release. Feeling the hip bones narrowing, squeezing the inner thighs, and softening. So as my hip bones come together, I'm encouraging that lower abdominal connection and softening. Coming in on the out breath and the in breath we release. Now we can do that with a hip lift as well, pelvic lift. So I'm going to lift up, and as I lift up, I squeeze the cushion and I bring my hips together, and then I release and come down. As I squeeze my inner thighs and squeeze and soften and squeeze and down and squeeze and down and squeeze and down. Two more, and squeeze and release. Get that release. Make sure you're breathing, and squeeze and release. Take the cushion out. Let your legs go long. Oh, taking some nice deep breaths. And coming onto your sides and up to standing. And then once you're standing, we're just going to do a little bit of tapping for the lower back. This is a great technique to stimulate the proprioceptors, brings our awareness, brings our brain to that area so it can start to organize it. I'd like you to bend your knees and start with your pelvic tilts, and as you do that, you can just start to tap around your lower back, tap your glutes, around the sacrum, come round. You can even tap the diaphragm, making the noise of vibrations around the ribs, into the glutes again, tap in, and then let go of the hands. See how you feel. So I am massively different balance across my feet. I feel so much more even over my right and left side of the body. How are you feeling? How has that changed, if anything at all? Is your back feeling long? Your heart feeling lifted? Ah. Well done. Guys, I really hope that's been helpful. If it has, please let me know, because I've got a whole load of other, there's lots and lots of stuff that I can do to progress this work for you, give you more variations. If there's anything that you particularly found useful, there's other stuff that can help along those same lines. So really want you to take this as a way of identifying imbalances in your own body. Once you can know what's going on in your own body, then you can start to change things. This is a really important thing for me sort of bring across to you. And I'm really grateful for the online membership and the online opportunity to do this and bring you this knowledge in the hope that you find it really useful, or as useful as I found it in my work. So thanks again, guys. Take care. There is going to be a workshop on this, by the way. There is going to be a workshop. I do an hour and a half, which is, as a member, you'll get that part of your membership where you can come and join me on Zoom, and we can work through lots of other things as well. So if you've enjoyed it, working on specific areas of the body, let me know other areas that you might be of interest to you, and I'll try and get something together. But take care, enjoy. Whenever you're watching this, I'm going to say enjoy your weekend, enjoy your week, whatever it is, and I'll really look forward to hearing your feedback. Thanks, guys. All the very best. Bye.